They thought they were following a path to salvation, but what they found was horror, death, and betrayal. Tonight, we take you inside the disturbing world of a cult that began with hope and ended with one of the darkest mass tragedies in American history. This is the story of Elias Moon, the man who called himself the Shepherd of Light, and the victims who trusted him until their very last breath. Elias Moon wasn't born into power. He came from a broken home in rural Texas. His father was an abusive alcoholic, his mother a deeply religious woman who often told him he was chosen by God. As a teenager, Elias showed early signs of manipulation. Teachers described him as persuasive, even hypnotic, able to talk his way out of trouble. In his early 20s, he drifted between odd jobs, preaching on street corners and scamming churches for donations. But he had something that drew people in: charisma. He knew how to speak directly to people's pain. By the late 1980s, Elias reinvented himself as a prophet, claiming he had received visions from God about the coming end of the world. He promised that if people followed him, they would survive the apocalypse and live in eternal light. And people believed him. At first, Elias held small gatherings in parks and rented halls. His sermons were emotional, filled with fire and tears. He offered comfort to the lonely and answers to the desperate. Followers were told to sell their possessions and cut ties with the outside world. By 1989, Elias had purchased land in a secluded part of Northern California. It became known as the Sanctuary of Light. To outsiders, it looked like just another commune. But inside, the rules were strict. No contact with outsiders. No independent thought. Every hour of every day dedicated to Elias and his teachings. Slowly, Elias broke down the individuality of his followers. He dictated what they wore, what they ate, and even who they could marry. Parents were told that their children belonged not to them, but to the light. Former follower Daniel Green recalled, "At first, it felt like family. Everyone was smiling, hugging, working together. But within months it changed. We were isolated. We were punished if we asked questions. I remember being forced to kneel in the dirt for hours while Elias told us that pain was God's way of purifying the soul." As the years passed, Elias's prophecies became more extreme. He preached that the government was controlled by demons, that the outside world was poisoned, and that only through him could people be saved. Members were starved for days, told it was cleansing. They were kept awake for nights at a time, forced to chant Elias's name until they collapsed. Any sign of rebellion was crushed publicly, with beatings or humiliations designed to terrify others into obedience. Rachel Adams, one of the few survivors, later said, "He broke us. He convinced us that our families, our children, even our own thoughts couldn't be trusted. The only truth we had left was him." By 1994, the cult had over 200 members, and Elias claimed that time was running out. The apocalypse, he said, would arrive within weeks. On March 14, 1994, Elias gathered his followers inside the main hall of the compound. Witnesses described the atmosphere as tense, almost electric. He told them that the final day had come, that they must prepare to cross over into eternal life. Some followers accepted it willingly. They believed with every fiber of their being that Elias was leading them to salvation. But others hesitated. Mothers clutched their children tightly. Some whispered fears that this wasn't God's plan at all. Rachel Adams remembers that moment. He looked at us with fire in his eyes and said, "Doubt is the language of the devil, and I will not let the devil steal your souls tonight." That's when I knew none of us were leaving that room alive. That night, 57 people were killed. Many were poisoned, their cups of holy drink laced with deadly chemicals. Others were forcibly restrained and injected. Families died together, dressed in white robes, believing it was a sacred ritual. When police arrived after Rachel's desperate call, the scene was indescribable. Rows of bodies, candles burned down to their stubs, and eerie silence, as if the entire hall had been frozen in time. And Elias? He was gone. The massacre sent shockwaves around the world. At first, the media called it a mass suicide, but investigators quickly discovered the truth. This was murder on a massive scale. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts of the decade. Elias had been planning his escape for years. He had multiple fake IDs, money hidden in offshore accounts, and loyal followers who helped him disappear. He was reportedly spotted in Mexico, then Canada, and later in Brazil. Each time, he vanished before authorities arrived. Some believe he had sympathizers who tipped him off whenever the FBI got close. Rachel, who testified in court, said, "He told us many times, 'If the day ever comes, I will walk among the shadows, and the world will never find me.' I believe he planned everything, even our deaths." The tragedy devastated families across the country. Parents buried children. Brothers and sisters mourned entire families lost. Survivors were haunted by guilt. Why had they lived when so many others died? The media turned the compound into a spectacle. Cameras captured every detail of the crime scene, every tearful interview from grieving relatives. But for investigators, the real nightmare was knowing that the man responsible was still out there. Decades later, the FBI still lists Elias Moon among its most wanted fugitives. Some agents believe he may have died long ago, living under an assumed name. Others fear he may be out there right now, building a new following, preparing to repeat the cycle. The Shepherd of Light promised his followers eternity, but all he left behind was tragedy, fear, and unanswered questions. To this day, his whereabouts remain a mystery. Could he still be out there, blending into society, searching for his next victims? Or is he a ghost from the past, dead but never forgotten? One thing is certain. Elias Moon's story proves that sometimes the most dangerous monsters aren't strangers in the shadows, but the ones who claim to guide us into the light. And as the years pass, the pain of those 57 souls continues to echo, a reminder of how fragile the human mind can be when placed in the wrong hands. Survivors still wake up in the middle of the night, haunted by the cries of the people they once called family. Investigators still keep Elias's file open, waiting for the day a clue finally reveals his fate. But until then, the shepherd's shadow lingers, casting doubt and fear wherever blind faith takes root. So I ask you, if tomorrow someone offered you hope, promised you salvation, and claimed to know the path to a better world, how far would you go to believe them? And how would you know when belief has crossed the line into something deadly? This has been one of many haunting cases of true crime and unsolved mysteries. If you want to hear more stories like this one, stories that the world cannot forget, make sure you subscribe, because the next case may be even darker than this one.